All right, let's talk about Archive. This came out July 10th. It's an hour, 49 minutes, sci-fi. Am I allowed to say thriller? Here's the plot synopsis from IMDb. It's the year 2038, which, dude, Upload, which I reviewed, was in 2033, 2038. My daughter will be 20. Ha! Wow. George Almore is working on a true human equivalent AI, artificial intelligence, and his latest prototype is almost ready. The sensitive phase is also the riskiest as he has a goal that must be hidden at all costs, being reunited with his dead wife. Directed and written by Gavin Rothery, which I believe he has like one other credit and it's just a short. So this is his feature film debut. And it is just like Andrew Patterson with The Vast of Night. It is a doozy. It is a good one. It's a good one. I mean, for a fucking debut, not too shab. The cast, Theo James. So I mentioned this in the intro, plays George Almore. Who is Theo James? Maybe not exactly a brand name just yet, but he was in Castlevania, the TV series. He was in Underworld, one of the Underworld movies. And he was in that Allegiant, Divergent, Insurgent trilogy, where he played Shailene Woodley's romantic interest. And the ladies love him. Ladies love Theo James, LL Cool J. It's always tough when I'm trying to pick a movie with my wife, but then you mix in the sister-in-law, makes it doubly tough. Because like we don't have the same tastes. We're all in different areas of movie fandom. I actually asked my sister-in-law, like, what are your top 5 favorite movies? And she's like, I can't answer that. I'm like, okay, all right, I appreciate it. And the only reason I asked that is like so I can at least do some research and we can cut down on the amount of time we spend browsing. Because that takes up at least an hour. You got to factor in an hour browse time, watching a million trailers, getting lukewarm responses to each of the trailers. You play one trailer, they love it, and I'm watching it, I'm like, I don't know if I can sit through 2 hours of this. I need to be intoxicated. But there, as soon as I mentioned Theo James was in this, they were like, yeah. So you don't care that it's basically like Ex Machina, sci-fi, robots. And they're like, nope, Theo James. I'm like, all right, good to see that when it comes down to it, we're all just human and we all just want some eye candy once in a while. So yeah, it's Theo James. Stacy Martin as Jules Almore. That's Theo's wife, dead wife. She also voices the various iterations of the robots that he builds. So J3, J2, J1. I will just bring up that she plays young Joe in Nymphomaniac Volume 1 and 2. And I bring that up because I've not seen Nymphomaniac Volume 1 and 2, but it has been in my Netflix queue for years. And I don't have the balls to watch it. All I know is I saw the preview image, the thumbnail, the movie poster, whatever you want to call it. It's on Netflix and I added it to my queue, but I just don't have it in me to watch it. But I got to cross it off the list. I got to get it out of my queue. I can't stand it when a movie's been in my queue for too long. It bothers me. Rhona Mitra, as I just realized that this cast breakdown I have is kind of horny. Yikes. Rhona Mitra as Simone, the VP of Internal Development of Artisan Robotics. If you were a fan of FX's The Strain, she was in that. I haven't seen it, but you want to talk about preview images or thumbnails or promotional art, whatever you want to call it. The fucking shit that they were putting out for The Strain. Oh my God. Even like the outdoor advertising, like if you're walking out and about in the city, remember those days? Dear God, I got a little queasy, a little nauseous looking at that promotional art, that print art. Google it, but don't say I didn't warn you because it's like a long like tongue and there's like a needle and an eye. I don't know. There's a lot of like very intense graphic imagery going on with The Strain that I don't know how you get away with advertising that in public. I sound like an old man on the lawn yelling at the sky. The Last Ship, which I also didn't see. I think that's on TNT, maybe TBS. That's another show. That's a show I could get into, I think. Is that about aliens? Is that about Battleship? The credit that I latch on to and that I remember for Rhona Mitra, Nip Tuck. I was very into Nip Tuck for a hard 2 or 3 seasons. It was just like one hell of a joyride. And she was in it. And I think she was like, spoiler, and she played like a killer. Maybe she was a doctor or a cop, but she was also a killer. That's when the show went a little sideways. It was like it's now a murder mystery. Hans Peterson is Elson. I honestly thought this was the dad from Step Brothers, and it's not the dad from Step Brothers. After looking at IMDb, for sure is not. But if you watch this movie and you watch the scene with Elson, you're like, That's a dad from Step Brothers. Toby Jones as Vincent Sinclair, an executive of the archive company. This dude is like raking it in as like evil scientist slash doctor, like bad doctor. Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, Wayward Pines, Captain America, First Avenger, Harry Potter series. Like this dude makes bank. And I bet he has no qualms about it. He's like, you need a evil looking bad doctor? I'm your guy. And I'm just going to continue to make a career out of it. And God bless him. If it ain't broke, my man. So yeah, I think Theo James did a better job in this than he did in like the friggin' trilogy, Allegiant, Divergent, Insurgent. Stacy Martin as the wife. Yeah, she was good. The critics' consensus for Archive. Archive executes its fairly basic program efficiently, offering sci-fi fans an engaging meditation on love and human nature. 73% of critics gave it a favorable review with an average rating of 7 out of 10. I would put my review right around there. 7 out of 10. I think I put 7 out of 10 on the old IMDb. Hard to say what I would give it without the twist. But then again, a lot of people will say, well, the twist detracts from the rest of the movie. One of the main criticisms is like, well, this was really slow. And like everything that happened, is it just null and void? Like, what do we do with it once we find out the twist? Some of the top critics, what did they have to say? Asking what happens if a machine replicates free will so well. What? I don't even know what I just read. Asking what happens if a machine replicates free will so well that it begins to form its own desires contrary to that of its creator. Archive is a unique take on love and loss. Okay. Yet somehow Rothery turns this all around in the last few minutes into something that left me genuinely stunned. Okay. Sleek and satisfying riff on familiar sci-fi themes. Yes, for show. I mean, it's hard to not draw comparisons to Ex Machina. I think that's what most people see when they see this movie. It's like, okay, you got a dude who builds a robot. It's a female that has her own way of thinking and rebels. So yeah, there's that. There's I picked up on like Westworld influences, especially when he's creating J3, the third prototype, and you can see her coming through the liquid, and then you have this circular white circle, and it's like very strikes a chord. If you've seen Westworld, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So they're in Japan, and it's like winter, and it's snowing, and then the laboratory, the facility that he's in, for some reason, like makes me think of Inception. I've also seen comparisons to, I think it's called Mother, which we just watched. Did I give a review of that? I should have, but did I? Same kind of setup as Mother or I Am Mother. Same kind of environment, isolated, remote. So yeah, I feel like he just kind of, Rothery cherry picked a lot of what his favorite sci-fi elements from his favorite sci-fi movies and TV shows and just plugged it in, plug and play. And I'm not hating on it. Why not? Another critic said, when Rothery's storytelling stalls, his filmmaking keeps things crisp and involving. And that was the main criticism for a lot of people, was like slow, overrated because of the way that he shot and because of Theo James' intensity that it carried the film. I know a lot of people, my wife and my sister-in-law were like, where is this going? How is this going to end? Which can be a gift and a curse, can be good and can be bad. You can be like, where is this fucking going? Like you're tired of it and you're bored, versus you're intrigued, like, where is this going? And now we get into the spoiler section. The twist, that ending. Whew. I called it, by the way. I think I pretty much called it. I forget when I called it. I have a lot of questions. I'm left with a lot of questions. And that's not to say that it ruins the movie, but the twist kind of negates a lot of what's happening for like 95% of the movie, right? So Archive is similar to Upload, which is similar to, in a way, I guess, The Good Place meets Transcendence, that Johnny Depp movie. Basically, your digital consciousness is uploaded somewhere and you're allowed to live in this afterlife, right? So Theo James, driving with his wife, tells her about this opportunity in Japan. He's going to be able to build robots, his dream. He gets millions of dollars to do it in a facility. He has total control, I think. And so she's kind of on the fence. It's like, wow, Japan, like that's a big move. They're driving the car and it crashes. And you see like him kind of like moving and bloody. And you see like her arm is all bloody, but like stationary, not moving. The conclusion you reach is like she's dead. And so what ends up happening is her consciousness gets uploaded to this machine and he is able to talk to her. But unlike, it's kind of like Upload in that when we talked about Upload, it's a freemium environment or afterlife, right? So you need to keep refilling your account or paying for things. Otherwise, you get relegated to the basement with the 2 gigs and you're allowed 2 gigs of data. And once you go through that, you freeze and you can't do anything. With this, you're allowed so many hours of data or whatever. So he's talking to his wife, but he has 200 hours with his wife, right? So if you ration that out, you think about it, it's like, all right, I got 200 hours before she's gone, like forever. Like I can't talk to her anymore at all because that's just where the technology is at. 200 hours, you figure if I do 1 hour a week, that'll buy me like 4 years, right? Am I doing the math correctly? If we talk for half an hour a week, that'll get me possibly 8 years with her. But the catch is like, how do you just limit yourself to half an hour with a wife that you know you'll not, like the car crash, you don't know, like it's boom, kaput, done. But like, there is a finite time that you have available with your wife. Like, Jesus, like how are you going to limit it to half an hour a week? A week. Jesus Christ. I mean, you do an hour a day, you're done in less than a year. So what ends up happening is like Theo James' character, he finds out a way. He's like, I'm going to build a robot that has artificial intelligence that is, like I said, human equivalent. But then I'm going to upload my wife's digital consciousness into this robot. And so then, boom, I can live the rest of my life, at least with her, possibly even find out a way to transfer my consciousness to it, also a robot when I go, and then we can be robots together. Not a bad plan. Dude, sign me up. Let's figure it out. I don't want to die. So alas, you see throughout the movie that he is infringing on a copyright because he is like, I guess you could say hacked, or he's stealing technology from the archive company. He's trying to steal it. Basically, it's illegal what he's doing. His company's getting sued. He's getting, berated by the Rhona Mitra. He has the Sinclair Melvin or whatever, the evil looking bad doctor and his henchman lackey come and investigate and kind of inspect the archive company machine that Theo James uses to communicate with his dead wife. And it's like, this looks like it's been tampered with. You're violating the Dead Restoration Act or something like that. And they're about to like throw down. And he's like, get out. The walls are closing in on him. And he's got to figure out how to get the consciousness into his wife's, the robot that he created, so that they can, I guess, escape and live happily ever after. Crimes and felonies and arrests be damned, I guess. Jail time be damned. But as he's developing this J3 prototype, there's a J1 prototype and there's J2 prototype. The J1 prototype is very clunky, cannot speak, just like beeps and chirps, and is not very mobile and whatnot. And we find out that the development, the brain, I guess the artificial intelligence development, is equivalent of like a 5-year-old person. The J2 prototype is a little bit better, still a little clunky, but it can speak, but it's not, it's a little more mobile, but not, does not resemble a human at all. And it has the development of like a 16-year-old. And then the J3 prototype is like, looks like a human, is fully developed human equivalent. So the J2 prototype is getting super jealous the whole time throughout the movie. Theo James is almost like a dad to the J1 and J2 prototype. Like, you shouldn't be out in the bad weather. You're going to get wet. You know what happens when you're wet. So he's acting like a father, parental figure to J1 and J2. And J2 is obviously jealous of what's happening with J3. She's like, why don't you make these improvements to me? Am I not good enough? Blah, blah. Kind of the insecurities and doubt that a 16-year-old would have. And as a father, he's like, no, don't worry about it. Like, you're fine as you are. Don't worry about it, blah, blah. And then J2 eventually kind of runs away. She keeps going to this one secluded spot by a waterfall and like kind of just staring off. And like, you're like, what is this J2 robot doing? She's like all alone. She's just like deep in thought, I guess, pondering certain things, life, I guess. And then eventually she just says her goodbye to J1. The J2 robot says goodbye to J1 and just walks into a lake, just like commits suicide, I guess. So you're really like invested in this J2 robot. You're like, holy shit, what a journey. Robot was created. It had intelligence, wants approval and love from its father, Theo James. And Theo James is too wrapped up in developing J3 that he does have a tendency to ignore, neglect, maybe even not fully appreciate or not be grateful for or devalue J2. And so that dynamic, that relationship is probably the most compelling of them all. And J2 just like has had enough and is like, I'll never be good enough for this. Theo James gets wrapped up in its own head and starts spiraling and just walks into a lake. That was what Drew tugged at the emotional heartstrings, whatever. And it was like, wow, the wow moment of the majority of the movie, until you get to the twist ending where you find out like, okay, walls are closing in on Theo James. Archive company's coming for him and they're not happy about it. They have these robots that are killer robots and they're trying to break down the walls and the barriers and blah, blah. And he's like, he's got the J3 prototype. The J3 prototype is also rebelling to a certain extent because she's like, you just created me so that you could have, your whole plan was to upload her digital consciousness to me, which means that my existence will be wiped out. You're overwriting me. I'm just a software program to you. And he's like, yes, but it's he somehow convinces her. So she has a gun, is about to shoot him. And she's like, and he somehow talks her out of it. So she lies down. He's about to insert and upload the thing. He does. And then the phone from the archive company rings, and it's you. So part of this is like, as you're reaching the 200-hour limit, data limit, whatever, when you're talking to the deceased party, the connection gets worse and worse and worse. So it becomes more staticky. So the J3 prototype is like, don't pick that up. So she pretends like she is the dead wife for like a hot minute. And then he's like, no, this isn't you. Like, this isn't it didn't work. And then the phone for the archive company rings and she's like, don't pick it up. He picks it up. And the wife is like, I'm sorry, I didn't tell you I was pregnant. That was weird too. It was like, wait, so how does the robot know that she's getting memories? But I guess it was like, she's getting these memories of Theo James when she was alive. So then it's like, why are you upset when it's like, now you're going to get all 100% of the dead wife? That was confusing. But he picks up the phone and the wife is like, I'm sorry, our time is over, blah, blah. And he's like, she's like, I should have told you that I was pregnant. I'm sorry, but say hello to your daughter. So then you're like, it's like, whoa, like, wait, so she's alive. She has a 4 or 5-year-old daughter. The daughter says, hi, daddy. And then you realize, oh my God, Theo James is the one who's dead. He's the one who died. The wife is alive and well with their daughter. And then you see him kind of just like, boom, fade away, evaporate, disintegrate, pull back. Cut to the wife like walking away from the archive company machine, and then Sinclair being like, sorry, bro. And then she walks away with the daughter. You're like, oh, okay, cool. That is one hell of a twist. I called it. I'm not saying I hate it, but it also raises so many questions about the movie that you watched. And maybe it would have been too clear of a giveaway if you just tell it from his perspective and he's in every shot and every scene. Then you pick up like a Sixth Sense vibe to it. There's definitely a Sixth Sense influence to it. But like with Sixth Sense, it just pulled it off better. This one, it's like, so there's this complete digital environment where we are able to follow J2 committing suicide or like secluding to some area. Like, how are we able to continuously follow J2 and her adventures and whatnot when it was Theo James is the one who's locked in this archive company? Like, if every shot and scene included him, it would make more sense to me. But the fact that we went kind of this red herring rabbit hole with J2, how are we able to watch that? And wouldn't we have been better served if you saw Theo James see her walk into the lake or something like that? Does that make sense? All right, so that's that's archive.